Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. This is my new computer. So Tashi Dilek to everyone, and thank you for joining our class. Before Geshe is coming, I just want, I published about, on the chat, about Tenzin Palmo visiting. It will be on the Zoom, answer question. So if you can see if you can see it, so it's good. If not, so I will publish it again. So you can go and sign and see when it's going on. And that's all. We will wait for Geshe to join us. Thank you very much. Hi, Geshe.
Hi, hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Oh, good.
Yes, I made you a co-host. And Geshe, thanks for teaching us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we
Okay,
can
good.
hear you very well.
Great.
So it's on the YouTube and it's recording, and it's okay. I can share the picture, so no problem.
Oh, you can do it. Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. So what time is it? Yeah, it's 6 where I am. So let's start. Okay, are you ready to start? Great. Okay, so as always, we start with some breathing meditation. Please switch off your sound. Mute yourself. And just be mindful of your breath, if you're breathing in and out. And then visualize in the space in front of you Buddha Shakyamuni as a manifestation of all enlightened qualities. With great and endless compassion, perfect wisdom. And think that Buddha is inseparable from your personal Lama or even your Lamas. Seated on an open, large lotus and a sun and moon disk. Wearing the saffron robes of a monk. And through his example and his teachings, showing us the path to enlightenment. And then think that you're surrounded by all sentient beings. Who all appear in the aspect of a human being, all quietly sitting around you wherever there's space. All of them controlled, being controlled by their root misperception. Wishing to find lasting happiness. But constantly creating the causes for suffering. And so focusing on all of these beings generate sincere and affectionate love. A strong type of care, closeness, and affection. Towards all sentient beings. And then focusing in particular on the endless suffering, the endless problems and difficulties sentient beings experience constantly. Generate great compassion. A heartfelt wish, a heartfelt aspiration for all sentient beings to be completely free from any type of suffering and its causes. Together with the aspiration, may I be able to help sentient beings to free themselves from all their suffering and its causes. And that aspiration then gives way to the altruistic attitude, the determination to do whatever is needed, however long as it takes, to help sentient beings to overcome their sufferings. Feel that strong determination from deep within your heart. The sense I can do this and I will do this. But since most effectively we can do this once we're enlightened, let's then generate bodhicitta. This heartfelt aspiration to become a fully enlightened Buddha, not just for our own sake, but also for the sake of all sentient beings. For each and every one of them. And it's also for the benefit of all sentient beings, though, wish to become enlightened, for the benefit of all sentient beings. That is the motivation for us today to continue our study of the fundamental wisdom. So, this in mind, holding the visualization, let's go for refuge and deepen our bodhicitta. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Okay then. All right, so, okay, let's go to the Lam room. Am I already sharing the screen? No. Okay, there we go.
No, you're not.
Now, can you see this?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, great. So the Lam room outlines. Right. Go. Let's continue with death. We spoke about the disadvantages of not remembering death last time, and for some reason I forgot to mention those last three, but never mind. Hopefully you were able to go through them, and anyway, they're self-explanatory, so if you haven't gone through them yet, you may do that for this coming week. But most importantly, let's focus on the 6 benefits of remembering death. So the fact that if we remember death, and well, one thing that's important is there are different ways of remembering death. There's the intellectual way. Oh yeah, I could die any day. Okay, what's next? And there's this heartfelt, emotional sense. Oh yeah, this could be my last day, my last hour, my last minute. And so important, something I meant to say also before, but I forgot. Well, in a way, you remember during the analytical meditation, I talk about, well, first we do the analysis, and then I ask you at the end to focus on the conclusion, to focus on the emotion that you generate. So that kind of emotion is so important, to really feel whatever you've reflected on, from the depth of your heart. And of course, what's extremely important in that process is to take whatever you hear, any Dharma explanation you receive, to always relate it back to yourself. It's not about understanding my neighbor could die anytime, or I don't know, someone else, anyone else but me. It's rather that, well, it's me who could die. And also, of course, what you learn here, what we study here, we talk about the misconception, when we talk about its object, again, I have that kind of mind in my continuum. It's controlling, it's the root of all my trouble. To really get a sense, oh yeah, oh gosh, that's why I suffer. I keep looking for all these causes of my trouble, but the real cause is that, to get that emotional sense, or I don't know how to put it into words, this deep sense, oh, that's so true, even if it's fake. I mean, initially it is kind of a little bit fake, because you're not like, you don't have that inside yet, but still to get your mind to be moved in such a way, and not just to go through the intellectual kind of understanding. So here, the same way, if I really remember death, I'll act more meaningful. I will want to practice the Dharma, and to get a sense what it would be like. If you know you're going to die in an hour, what are you going to do? Eat some ice cream? I mean, the thing is, it depends on, of course, some people would, if they know they don't have much time to live, maybe try and just enjoy whatever they haven't enjoyed yet. But of course, this is all done on the basis of your understanding. So what's more important, eat a liter of ice cream for a very last time, or to practice the Dharma, be well prepared? And so, of course, to get a sense, I'll act in a meaningful way, and I will want to practice the Dharma. Most of my positive actions, they'll be powerful and effective. They'll be sincere. I'm not just, oh God, the Buddha said so, oh God, I've got better stuff to do, but never mind, I'll practice a little bit, I'll practice the Dharma now. I'll be kind to this person. But it doesn't come from the depth of our heart. It's just because we're supposed to do it. But when we know we've got little time left, and we understand the importance of positive actions, then our actions will be so much more powerful and effective. And then it says here, C, D, and E, point C, D, and E. It's important at the beginning when we start. It gives us this push. First, we've reflected on precious human life, our precious human existence. And now, well, how long are we having this precious gift, this precious opportunity? And so getting to death, then we'll understand, well, it may not be very long. We may have that for just a few more days or a few more years at the most. And therefore, I'll start right now. I cannot procrastinate. Usually, yeah, I start tomorrow. I'll really start tomorrow, or the day after, or maybe after this vacation, after the holidays, and so forth. But no, I need to do this now. I need to start right here and right now. But then in the middle, okay, I've taken the first steps. I've been practicing. I've tried to make the Dharma my life, in the sense that, of course, you don't need to change your haircut, put on a specific particular clothes, and so forth. I mean, you appear the same way, you keep doing your job, but you bring the Dharma into your life. So you live the Dharma, doing your job, doing what you usually do. So having taken that first step, of course, it's important to remember death, to persevere, to continue with what you've done so far. And then when you're getting closer towards the end, at the end, reaching the end, of course, you need to continue, because sentient beings are suffering. So there's no time to waste. It's not about me getting enlightened, but helping sentient beings. And how do I do that? Becoming enlightened. So that's the sentient beings' well-being. That's the main reason that it's done. So it's important also then to remember, well, I have this precious existence right now, but I don't know for how long. And then what happens when we die, and we don't know when? Of course, it could be tomorrow, it could be in 50 years, in 50 years' time, but we'll die with a happy mind, no regrets. It's fine. Even if we know weeks in advance we're going to die, we'll make all the preparations with a peaceful mind, even with a joyful mind. So you can actually enjoy your own death. And even more than that, you can use your own death to practice the Dharma in very profound ways if you've reached that level. So to reflect on that, but to also start then the 9-round meditation, taking the first step, reflecting on the first point, because this is not that difficult. Go through it, really feel it. I'm saying don't just intellectualize, but get a deep sense, oh, this is so true. And then for the 9-point death meditation, the first one being death is inevitable or is definite, think that nothing can prevent your death. Your time has come. Someone locked you in a room, I don't know, brought you to a hospital, invited all the Buddhas to be there and save you. Nothing could be done. If the time has come, the karma has ripened, nothing can prevent our death. So eventually we will die. That day is going to come. That time is going to come. And to really internalize that for this coming week. Great. Okay, so I hope this is clear. I don't think I need to say that much more about it. No, I think it's fine. Of course, if you want to be inspired about this particular point, please read the Lamrim. I mean, there you get the best explanation. Lama Tsongkhapa's Lamrim, of course, it's been translated into English. You can find it online even. Then you have the Steps to Enlightenment by Geshe Sopa. I don't think it's available online for free, but you can purchase it, at least the first volume, and there you have even further explanation on death. And anyway, there's plenty of material for you to read. So your own death, it's all about death this week, right? It's great, actually. The thing is, initially it's scary. Initially for us, it's scary. But once we overcome the fear, it's joyful. It's joyful and it's so effective. They give these analogies. It's like sometimes they give the example of like a farmer plowing in autumn is most effective in terms of your harvest for next year. So just after the harvest of this year, you plow the field. That's most effective. And so in the same way, of all the different practices, especially at the beginner level, death is most effective. It really hits us because it's so clear that this is true. Okay, that we're going to die and so forth. And it's like of all the footprints of an animal, it's like the footprint of an elephant. It leaves the deepest impression. It really shakes us up, leaves the deepest impression. So the first point about the plowing, like being like that analogy, it gets us to practice most effectively. The second analogy of the elephant footprint, that it rattles us, it shakes us up and motivates us to practice even more. Okay, so that should be enough on death for this coming week. But of course, also whatever we study, I don't need to say it again and again, that what you hear, I mean, even what you hear in class, the best way to listen to this would be to say, oh, this is me. When we hear what Nagarjuna says, when we hear what Lama Tsongkhapa says, I mean, really, all I'm writing down is just it's just an explanation of some of what Lama Tsongkhapa, especially in the beginning, says. So to get a sense, he's talking to me. He's telling me, this is the root of your trouble. He's telling me, watch out. This is what you need to understand. Understand your own mind, understand that misperception. So take it like a personal instruction. That's actually a term that is used a lot in the Dharma. Take it as a personal instruction. He's talking right to you. Don't take it like an abstract idea about a mind. Okay? And in that way, even just listening to the Dharma, it's like internalizing. It's kind of what we would do in the meditation. It's what you do as part of a meditation, internalizing certain aspects. So you do it right there and then. And then, of course, deepen that as you meditate at home. Okay. But what I'd like to start with today is I don't want to go back to the text right away, but now I've got your questions. And I'd like to answer them, at least some of them. The ones, oh, wait, I forgot to, just a sec. Okay, here we go. Oh, prayers for class questions. Okay. So here are the questions. And I'll start with the first question I received. I believe those are from last week. And there are quite a few here from last week. I'll try and always do the beginning part. I want, for instance, B is quite a few questions. So I'll answer one and then I go to the next and so forth. It's all really good questions, by the way. So B's question about cessation and arising. Okay, remember those 8 attributes. She wants to know about cessation and arising. Within the context of cessation and arising, is there abiding? Yes, of course, there's abiding. Cessation, arising. We hear about, especially those 3 in chapter 7. It's the 3 mentioned plus abiding in the as part of the attributes. It is not mentioned. Why? Because it's different. When you mention those 3 together, it's not the same as mentioning these 2. And we'll come to this. It is said that arising, abiding, and ceasing are simultaneous for prasangika. How is that possible? Well, now I'm coming to it. This is not exactly true. I'm saying it's not completely wrong, but there's a problem. This word is a problem. This word here, the way it's formulated here, is a problem. Because when it says those 3 are simultaneous, it's not this. It is has arisen. Having arisen, abiding and ceasing, those 3 are simultaneous. Having arisen, abiding and ceasing, these 3 are simultaneous. Just a sec. I'll show you. We've got the little drawing. Where is it? Here. Okay. Now, the 2 attributes, they talk about arising. That's what arising happens during this period. The seed is arising. So at the time of the cause of the seed is arising. Sorry, the sprout, not the seed. The sprout. During that time, you see, I get confused. I see a seed and I'm thinking that's what's arising. No. At the time of the seed, at the time of the cause, in this case, the seed, the sprout is arising. It's not there yet, but it's arising. At that time, the sprout has arisen. It's there. It exists. So it must have arisen. And those 2 are definitely contradictory. If X could be anything, X, Y, and Z. If X is arising, at that point, it cannot have arisen. So obviously, those 2 not take place at the same time. The sprouts arising and the sprout having arisen are not simultaneous. The sprout arising must precede the sprout having arisen. That makes sense, doesn't it? Therefore, well, when has the sprout arisen? When it's there. The sprout must have arisen. Once it's there, it has arisen. Okay, so it has arisen. It's there. Therefore, these 3 aspects, having arisen, ceasing, and abiding, they are simultaneous. Why? Because during the time of the sprout has arisen, is abiding, it's there, it's abiding, it's enduring, and it's ceasing, because it's changing moment by moment. So you could say, from the point of view of the sprout previously not being there, now being existing, we label the sprout has arisen. From the point of view of the sprout being called a sprout from each moment, although it's changing, we say the sprout is abiding. And from the point of view that, from the point of view that the sprout changes moment by moment, it's not always the same, though we call it sprout, and at some point it will be totally gone, we say the sprout is ceasing. Therefore, it's from different perspectives that we say the sprout is all three of them. It has arisen, it is ceasing, and it is abiding. So you see, therefore, be what you ask, there's no contradiction. Here, arising, abiding, and ceasing. How is that possible? If it's arising, I agree with you, because they can't be simultaneous. The sprout is arising at the time of its cause, but the sprout is abiding when the sprout has arisen. Therefore, that would be contradictory, those three. So abiding and ceasing, one particular phenomenon. Now, we're not talking about just abiding and ceasing in general. No, any particular phenomenon. It's abiding and ceasing happens simultaneous, and its arising precedes it. So ceasing, cessation, and arising, you see, if you use arising, then abiding it's not really part of it. Because here we're just talking about, unless you added it to cessation. Cessation, cessation, I guess you could say it refers to ceasing. Cessation refers to the process of ceasing. Therefore, arising refers to the cause of something, of a particular phenomenon, and the cessation, the ceasing in that case, that refers to the effect. The cessation. It's actually a little bit, I'm very grateful to Bea that she brought it up, because if this means the having ceased, then we cannot use this word. It should be ceasing and arising, because it's not talking about having ceased. But then why do we talk about the truth of cessation? That implies that something is gone, right? The afflictions are gone. They have ceased. They have been eliminated, which means the word cessation implies having ceased. And that's not what we're talking about here. When we talk about the two attributes of arising and ceasing, then that should be ceasing and not arising. Does that make sense? So I need to change the wording of the, I need to change the wording of the homage. I need to change that. I can do that. Yeah, I could do that. It's just irritating for those who later on read it and then follow the class. And in the beginning, I never mentioned ceasing. I mentioned cessation. I'll think about it more. But anyway, this is great. So Bea, that's a very good question. Okay, I'll leave those for the next round. Then Tauseti. It's less of a question. More of a statement, but also maybe there's a kind of a question and something I want to point at right at the beginning. Okay, I'll show this long enough. This is a very nice video it was done by Zonsai Kensei Rinpoche. Very nice, about designation. Now, it's difficult for you to write it down. I guess you probably have to write down this part. Maybe someone can write it down and then post it in the chat group. For those listening later, they can just stop the video and write it down. But yeah, it's a great video. It's really nice. Well thought through. Great. Okay. So did you have enough time to write it down? Maybe someone, can share it in the chat. Let me see what it is in the chat. Yeah, great. Someone put it there. That was quite good. There again. Very good. Okay. Now, what does Tauseti says? In your teaching, you mentioned different references of the term self. I get this in studying and translating the Madhyamika Vartara. In the Bodhisattva Chayatara, in the 9th chapter, this distinction seems a little bit clearer, but it depends on the translation someone uses. Yes, in one of the translations I prepared, I think I put in inherent self, sometimes inherent existence. I'm not sure. I was tempted when I translated this text, the Fundamental Wisdom, into German for the last teachings. I was tempted to add inherent when it's at that self, to show this is this self. I mean, what is meant is the inherent self, or when it talks about existence or non-existence. And then later I thought, no, it's better to figure it out oneself, to know, to get a sense. This is when Nagarjuna talks about the conventional self, and this is when he talks about the ultimate self. But yeah, in some translations, depending on the translations, sometimes the translators add in brackets certain terms that indicate which self is meant. In Western philosophy, there's something like the subject-object distinction. Okay, so he's basically saying you've got the self that is a subject, that is like an agent or a subject that has objects, and you have inherent existence that is an object that is obviously not a subject. I mean, but yeah, okay. So the clearest for me there is Arthur Schopenhauer's definitions: that which knows all things, that's the subject, and is known by none is the subject. Oh, sorry, no, that's the subject. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, both of them. So that which knows all things and is known by none is the subject. You see, there I would disagree. I would disagree simply because the subject can be known. It's like the self itself, or the mind for that matter, both the mind and the self are subjects, are phenomena that can know something. Therefore, both the person, both the mind, of course, we label the person knows on the basis of the mind, and we label the mind on the basis of something else. We label that the mind knows. But conventionally, both the person, both the mind, they know. So the mind and the person, they both know. But also the person, him or herself, can be known. The subject can be known. So Arthur Schopenhauer, I would disagree a little bit, but still he's got a point. It knows all things, and it's definitely difficult to know. It's really difficult to know the self. You know the objects that it knows, but it's difficult to know the knower. Okay. Also, he states that there's no subject without object. Very important, yes. Subject and object are dependent on each other, and vice versa. Also, Shantideva agrees. So subject, you don't have a subject without an object. You can't have a mind in particular. So the main subject we talk about is usually the mind. So the mind and its object, they depend on each other. You need a sense object for a sense consciousness to exist, and for a sense object to exist, you need a sense consciousness. Yes. And the relation between these two is not causal. It depends what type of mind is what type of mind we're talking about. If you're talking about a sense consciousness, well, the sense object is the cause of the sense consciousness. For instance, an external object such as a table, that is the cause of the eye consciousness perceiving the table. It exists a moment earlier to that eye consciousness, and it's one of its causes. It's object of its observed object cause, or its observed object condition, as it's usually called. But he's right about conceptual consciousnesses. They're objects, and conceptual mind, there's no causal relationship in general. Okay. All right. So this far I go, then it goes into something I think slightly different. In common everyday language, so Jimmy says, in common everyday language, we talk about static, permanent things performing functions. Buddhism, on the other hand, talks of non-static continuums that perform functions. Okay, so yes, if I don't know, I don't remember. Did I ever talk about that before I met Buddhism? I don't think I ever bothered about permanent and static and stuff. But okay, but in Buddhism, yes, I definitely learned. Once I studied Buddhism, I learned, yes, everything around us is non-static. And there are continuums or continue. Buddhism pointing out that permanent things couldn't do anything. They would be dead, useless, unable to interact with anything. They couldn't perform functions. Is that correct? Yes. So to perform a function requires change. Change that is like in the form of a continuum. It's a moment by moment, moment by moment transformation. And that's by definition that change we're talking about. And so to perform a function, yes, it's this interaction with other phenomena, this change of the object that functions, that functions or performs a function. And therefore, in order to be able to perform a function, that which performs the function and that which affects that function, they're all changing. Then would the Buddhist definition of continuum have the same meaning as the English words process or function? No, just because for a continuum to exist, a process is important, a function is important, that doesn't mean you would call the continuum the process or the function. It's on the basis of a process, a function that is performed, on the basis of that which performs the function, the different moments of that which performs the function, that we label continuum. You could say it's its basis of labeling, it's its basis of designation, that there's a phenomenon that moment by moment is changing, is different from moment to moment, that undergoes a process of change and performs the function of earlier moments giving rise to later moments, earlier moments acting as the causes of later moments. Based on all this, we label continuum. Does that make sense? Okay, based on all this, we label continuum. Okay, so a process defined in a natural series of changes. Yes, so based on the natural series of changes, we label continuum. Very good. When we say continuum, are we talking about processes? Well, that's part of it. It's not all. It's just a part of it. Natural series of changes or functions. What the Tibetan word gu is the word for gu, actually. Gu is the Tibetan word for continuum, guchik. And it can also mean tantra, but never mind that. In the sutric kind of context, gu means continuum. Even in tantra, you can use the word to mean continuum and not to refer to tantra. Is this what we mean by continuum in Buddhism? Yes, absolutely. Would the three terms continuum, process, function have the same meaning in this context? No, they don't have the same meaning. Those two are parts of the continuum. Then everything, all empowerment and non-stick things is a process of function. I wouldn't say that a vase is a function or is a process, but a vase undergoes a process. A table undergoes a process of change. It performs the function of giving rise to its later continuum. Not a real solid thing. I mean, what do you mean with solid? Like unchanging, static? No, it's not a real solid thing then. Or is there a different word for continuum in our current studies? No, same word, gu. Or gun. Gun. Sorry, gunshik, gun. Gun is also used. Gyuk it means continuum, but also gun. So if you exchange this letter, da, if you exchange that for na, then it becomes gun. And it also means continuum. But yeah, never mind. Other than that, oh, here, gun, there, you've got it. Are these all gu or gun? Yes, they all are gu or gun. Every empowerment phenomenon is a yun or a yu. Yun is used more, actually. The sutric system, gun, shik. But both are used. Okay. All right. And then Divya has a questions about appearing to the mind. Okay, can you explain again, how does not sunflower appear different from the sunflower to the mind in terms of its referent object? Isn't just the conceptual label different? Okay, it depends on the mind. It depends on the mind. If it's a direct mind, direct perceiver, as it's called, like an eye consciousness, Well, we could say that not sunflower, sunflower. I mean, they're exactly the same. So they both appear to the mind. They don't appear differently. So how can I mean, it's very difficult to prove that not sunflower appears to a conceptual mind. I mean, sunflower appears, but actually also not sunflower. I mean, not sunflower, not talking about it in a permanent sense. Like there's also like this abstract of not sunflower, of like negating it in an abstract way, but forget about that. But just not sunflower itself, well, that appears to the eye consciousness, and we're not even aware of that. It's the same as a sunflower appearing. I agree with you. But conceptual labeling, well, when we talk about conceptual consciousness, our mental consciousness, in most cases, there could be some dream consciousnesses that are direct perceivers, but usually during our awakened state as ordinary beings, all our mental consciousnesses are conceptual minds, and they require conceptual symbols, conceptual symbolism. Conceptual symbolism in the sense that we use imagery, we use, I don't know, if you think of the ocean, you don't know what the ocean is called, for instance. Let's say you think of something, but you don't know the term for it. You have no idea what it is, but you've encountered it. You've seen this ocean for the first time, and you don't know what it is. No one has ever told you about it. In your mind, it's the image. It's almost like your mind has taken a photograph of, while you're there, it's due to a memory. There's this image of the ocean in front of you, and that through this image your mind perceives the ocean. But if we use language, and if someone talks about, let's say, sunflower, you're more likely, of course, the sunflower may also appear. If someone talks about the sunflower, you may just have that image of the flower, sunflower. But if someone says not sunflower, you use language. I'm pretty sure, because it's like not sunflower. It's like your mind kind of processes the language. We don't talk like that in the first place. So not sunflower. And in that moment, not sunflower, it appears differently to sunflower. I mean, if I say beautiful sunflower, even that, the mind focuses then on that aspect of being beautiful on a sunflower. Although sunflower and beautiful sunflower, you could say they're, well, that's a bit debatable. They're what's it called? Synonymous. Because like what's beautiful for one is not for someone else. But so we can say it's beautiful. Let's say impermanent, safer. It doesn't take us into that debate. So impermanent sunflower. Every sunflower is impermanent. But if I take to mind impermanent sunflower, if I use words anyway, if I use words, if I think in a certain language, in other words, excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold. If I think in a certain language, anyway, obviously I'm using different words to refer to the sunflower. Sunflower, impermanent sunflower, not sunflower. It appears to me differently. But even without doing that, if I just say impermanent sunflower, I have some image of impermanent, what it means to be impermanent. I have an image of a sunflower. Again, different images appear to the mind. And even if I had some image of not, something that represents this idea of not, well, if I add not to the sunflower, then it appears different to the mind. Just do the test. Just do the test. Take like a whole list of objects, right? I say flower. I say rose. I say tall rose. Dried up rose. Impermanent rose. A rose that is a flower. They appear differently to the mind. There's a slight difference, right? Based on the words, based on the image you associate with that. And so therefore, not sunflower, and sunflower appears differently to the mind. Okay? It's just how conceptual mind works. It works very similar. There's a great relationship, I should say, great relation to words, right? The way a word When you say sunflower, that does not, it may imply it's impermanent, though it doesn't really imply actually. How is it implied? No, just sunflower. I mean, that's all sunflower. That's what appears to the mind. Therefore, it's restricted. The word sunflower can only express just that. It does not express not sunflower. Likewise, the conceptual mind perceiving sunflower, it does not, to that mind, sunflower appears, but not sunflower doesn't appear. When you have a conceptual mind perceiving sunflower, the not sunflower doesn't appear. Therefore, the mind and words, the conceptual mind are thoughts, and words, there's great similarity. And also, words can never really convey the a full thing. Like if you say sunflower, that word does not convey the entire sunflower. And you can talk as much as you want about the sunflower. To the person hearing what you're saying, they never get the same sense that they get when they experience a sunflower themselves. That is true for the conceptual mind as well. However much you think about the sunflower, you can never get the same sense as you would when you experience the sunflower. That is why a conceptual mind is just for the time being, that we use a conceptual mind to think about ideas such as subtle impermanence and emptiness. We want it to become a direct experiencing mind, because then you fully understand the object. Okay. All right, that's enough for today. I mean, regarding the questions, I've answered some questions and I'll go through the rest next time. There's also someone else who sent me a question yesterday. I'll answer that next time in connection with B's question, B's question number 3. Great. Okay, so yeah, I spent a little bit longer on the questions today just because I didn't answer any for quite a while. Now let's go back to the text. This is how far we came. We've learned from what Lama Tsongkhapa said. This is, of course, based on Ocean of Reasoning. What Lama Tsongkhapa said, he stressed the importance of understanding the misperception. This root misperception. Now we've heard we have heard about its categories, the different categories, and about why it's called root misperception. Now, something else that's very important is to know, and again, Lama Tsongkhapa mentions that, innate mind. He talks about innate, mentions the term. So for those of you who are not familiar with this, it's important to note that the root misperception is necessarily an innate consciousness. It's an innate mind. Now, an innate mind, as opposed to what? Okay. So there's something other than an innate mind, obviously, from what it says here. So not every conceptual consciousness that perceives inherent existence is a root misperception. Why? Because there are both innate and acquired misconceptions. There are 2 types, innate ones, and usually the term is, or oftentimes the term that is used is intellectually acquired. But Venerable Thupten Chodron from Sravasti Abbey, in her books, she's got these incredible books, these really wonderful books that she wrote based on His Holiness's teachings, and then she gives some extra explanations on very important philosophical points. And she uses the word acquired. I mean, I don't know, maybe someone else does too. I'm not sure whether Alex Bazin and some other great scholars use those words, use the same word, but I've come across it in her writing. And I think acquired is totally sufficient. Why add this long word, intellectually acquired? I like it, so I adopted that term. An innate consciousness, so you have innate misconceptions and acquired misconceptions. Okay. An innate consciousness, apprehending inherent existence, is a misperception that is inborn. We're born with it. It is not conditioned by the culture and environment we live in. Okay, it's just there. We were born with it as little children. We had a sense the world exists inherently. Animals have that sense. It's not like they use language and so forth. I mean, you don't need language to have a sense of inherent existence. We use language to try and understand it, but it doesn't require any language. Anyway, there's a sense of inherent existence, and that sense, or that misperception of inherent existence, is inborn and is not conditioned by, well, the culture and environment we live in. It arises naturally for sentient beings, including animals, who have not overcome cyclic existence and are therefore under the control of afflictions and karma. Of course, someone who's attained liberation, they have overcome the misperception of reality, acquired, and the innate one. So what is the acquired one? So, sorry, to finish that thought. Therefore, sentient beings who have not attained liberation, who are still under the control of the misperception, the innate misperception, well, all of those still have the root misperception, root misconception of reality. An acquired mind perceiving inherent existence, what is that? It's rooted in the innate self-grasping mind. Yeah, it's rooted in that. It's based on that. And without the inborn self-grasping mind, the inborn misperception, you couldn't have an acquired one. But it's not a misperception that we're born with, but one that develops owing to the influence of philosophical, religious, or cultural views and beliefs. Okay, so anything that supports that idea, that any explanations, philosophy, I mean, take for instance Freud's idea of the ego, right? The ego talks about the ego and the superego, implying that there's a separate entity that is called the ego, or is just a Latin word for a self. And similar, there are other ideas, the soul, way that the soul may be described. I don't know whether there's like a very detailed explanation of what the soul is, but nonetheless, is this the sense that there's something separate that when we die leaves our body and so forth. So it's some separate entity. That's not the mind. That's not the body. And again, that supports a separate self, and the view of such a self that's acquired. Although it can be very strong, that view can be strong and difficult to overcome. Well, it ceases at death, right? At the time of death, that's gone. Our philosophical, religious, cultural views and belief, they cease at death, and so does this particular acquired misconception. And it doesn't have the power to act as the root of cyclic existence. It does not. It may give rise to certain anger or certain attachment, possible, yes, definitely, but not to all. It's not that powerful that that it triggers samsara. Therefore, it's not the root misperception, or it's not a root misperception, which is why, just summarized in this particular chart, mind perceiving the inherent existence of a phenomenon, consciousness or mind perceiving the inherent existence of a phenomenon. You have the root misperception, the innate mind, as I see here, the innate conceptual consciousness conceiving inherent existence, and self-grasping mind or misperception that is not a root misperception. An example being the acquired conceptual consciousness conceiving inherent existence, or an example if you like, but that's what it refers to, an acquired conceptual consciousness conceiving inherent existence. Of course, the inherent existence of something, but it's not wrong to not mention the something, right? Just to say perceiving inherent existence. Okay, that's just a tiny thing. Like I say, go through what Lama Tsongkhapa says, and there's this word innate, and I'm thinking, I didn't explain innate. I'd better explain that. So for just those of you who don't know. Okay, and then let's look further at the root misperception. Other fundamental characteristics, again mentioned by Lama Tsongkhapa. With regard to the other fundamental characteristics of the root misperception, the innate self-grasping mind. Okay, so we're talking about the misperception. You see, I'll talk more about misconception versus ignorance next time as part of B's question and someone else's question. But for now, I want to say this much. Misperception, I chose this word as like a blanket term which encompasses any form of consciousness perceiving inherent existence. I call that the root misperception. It's not a word. I mean, it's not like I call it that. It's a term that is used widely. I'll mention again next time why I didn't talk about ignorance specifically. But anyway, for now, misperception. Is there a Tibetan equivalent for that word? Not exactly. Not exactly. It's a term that works really well in English. You could use it in Tibetan, something like wrong consciousness, if you were to use that. But the word that is usually used, or one of the words that is usually used to not specifically refer to ignorance that perceives inherent existence, but in general, the mind that perceives inherent existence, is this term, self-grasping mind. Oops. Danzin sem in Tibetan. Danzin sem. So danzin sem. In this case, you could actually literally translate it. Da means sem, zim means grasping or apprehending, and sem means mind. Okay, so I've also used this word in here. So please remember, here root misperception is the same as the innate self-grasping mind. Okay. All right. Self here, of course, not the existent self, but the inherent existence. Okay. So you become more familiar with the typical Buddhist vocabulary. This is the same we had to go through. I mean, my Western classmates and myself, we had to go through the struggle of the language itself. But my Tibetan classmates, they also had to learn that the self that is described here is not the ordinary self, the day-to-day kind of da that you use, in day-to-day language, especially when you write like I, we would sometimes write da. It's more like a literal term, like a literary term. But yeah, still they had to learn that. They had to learn that just as we have to do it in English. So the inner self-grasping mind does not differ from any correct consciousness. Why? Because like all minds, it is clear knowing. So when you think of the mind itself, it's a clear and knowing mind. Okay, that's the definition of consciousness, of awareness, of consciousness. It is clear. Why? Why is it clear? Because its object appears to it. And the mind is described as luminous or clear. Why? Because something appears to it. You close your eyes, you think of the table, and there it appears. And even the table in front of you, it appears. It's like you have an image of the table. You can later on describe it. It's not the table entered your eyes. No, it was reflected in your retina and whatever else happened, and therefore it appears to your eye consciousness. Therefore, there's always something that appears to a mind, even if it's just blackness while you're in deep sleep. Blackness appearing, something appears. Okay, so the inner self-grasping mind does not differ from any correct consciousness in that, like all minds, it is clear knowing. It is clear because its object appears to it, and it is knowing because if its object existed, the mind could potentially incontrovertibly know or realize that object. It could. It has that ability. Due to certain circumstances, this misperception cannot know its object because its object doesn't exist. You can't know something that doesn't exist. You can't realize, you can't know something that doesn't exist. It's impossible. You can believe that you know it, but that doesn't make it true. That doesn't mean that you can know the thing. Okay. Therefore, this mind, the misperception, it knows its object. Well, if it could potentially know its object, and therefore it's called knowing. At the very least, it perceives it. So it could potentially incontrovertibly know the object, but in terms of its activity, it does something. It may not know its object, but at least it perceives. It does what all other awarenesses do, perceives or is aware of something. Okay. So from the point of view of the mind itself, in terms of its underlying, its actual nature, being clear and knowing, it doesn't differ from any other mind. It doesn't even differ from it doesn't even differ from the mind of a Buddha. The mind of a Buddha is also clear and knowing. That characteristic is still there, that main characteristic, these main characteristics. And its activity of perceiving something, well, Buddha's mind perceives something, is aware of something. So the main reason that it's considered a misperception or wrong consciousness is that it conceives an object that doesn't exist, inherent existence. Moreover, it is essentially because of the perception of that object that the self-grasping mind gives rise to other afflictions and prevents a person from experiencing lasting peace and satisfaction. That object. So the object, so important, right? We blame for everything because the mind in itself is not the problem. Its perception is also not the problem. It's the object. The scriptures, therefore, provide detailed explanations of the object, of what does and does not appear to the self-grasping mind, what is perceived by it, and what is not. They describe what is called, and here comes the terminology, the apprehended object. B asked about the word object of engagement. Okay, that is this, it has the same meaning as an apprehended object. They actually mean the same thing, but I'm not using this term because it's a difficult term. So I'm here using, because we say apprehend, so I call it the apprehended object. Suyun in Tibetan, you'll see it in the I've mentioned it a little later. So anyway, I won't use all the terms of the object. There's so many terms. There's a whole field of study called Lorik. When you study the terms for each object, we don't need to do that. I'm just talking about the ones that I think are relevant for our study here, and some of the ones Lama Tsongkhapa mentions. Apprehended object, number 1. Object of reference, number 2. The basis. Okay. Now I'm getting a little technical here, but like, again, if you come across these words, some of Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary, what are you going to do? Just go, oh, never mind, I don't understand. No, you want to understand. So therefore, I tried to explain those words a little bit. Okay, so since it is apprehended, since inherent existence is apprehended by the root misperception, because it's inherent existence that is apprehended by the root misperception, inherent existence is described as the apprehended object. So what's the apprehended object? The object of engagement, if you like, or the apprehended object, inherent existence. Here, I'm very, very fancy. I've got the Sanskrit, not that I know. I just found it, so never mind. Just put it here. I don't know Sanskrit, but yeah. So as the apprehended object of that mind, inherent existence is the apprehended object, is the object of engagement. But it is important to note that the self-grasping mind apprehends not only inherent existence, but the inherent existence of something. Okay, it's not just inherent existence, not just inherent existence itself. It is the inherent existence of something. It perceives the inherent existence of a phenomenon that is of something that exists, like your body, your mind, a house, a car, and so forth, endless objects, the self. Okay, so let's take based on an example. I rewrote this many, many times, but based on an example, this may be easier. For instance, in the case of a conceptual consciousness apprehending the inherent existence of your body, could be in your continuum, or I could be perceiving your body to exist inherently. Your body, it's based on your body, based on your body, inherent existence is perceived. The body is now described, your body is described as the object of reference. Mikpa in Tibetan. Mikpa. But it's often also oftentimes called focal object or observed object. Now, it's the term that is used. It can be used, but it is difficult. It is confusing because the mind doesn't focus, the root misperception, perceiving your body to exist inherently, or perceives the inherent existence of your body. It doesn't focus on your body, and it doesn't observe your body. It doesn't, but it's called that. And that's a little irritating because it doesn't focus on it, it's not observed. Why is it called that? Well, one reason is definitely that before you perceive the before that mind, the mind right now perceives the inherent existence of your body, a moment earlier, it focused on your body. First, it just focuses on your body, and then it perceives it perceives the inherent existence of the body. First, it observed the body, and then it started to focus on its inherent existence, and it no longer focuses on the body, or it doesn't observe the body. It's just the inherent existence. So it's called the focal object because the name of the cause, which is the focal object of the previous mind, is given to the result, which is the next moment. This misperception, it arises as a result of that earlier moment focusing on the body. Now, this is a difficult concept. Oh, giving the name of the cause to the result. We do it all the time, but we don't know we do it. We give the name of the cause to the result in many situations. To give you an example, many of you have heard me say that many times. I don't come up with new examples. My apologies. When your bedroom window faces the south, what do you say? I have a lot of sun. I get a lot of sun in my room. No, you don't want to have a lot of sun in your room. You wouldn't have a room if you had a lot of sun in your room. No, the rays of the sun are in your room. So when you say, I have a lot of sun, I get a lot of sun, I have sun in my room, I've got a lot of sun in my room. So if you say that, you're actually using the name of the cause, the sun up in the sky, because it's thousands of kilometers away from you. So the name of the sun, the name of the cause, the sun, is given to the result, the rays of the sun. It's the rays of the sun that hit our window, that hit our room. There's also examples of giving the name of the result to the cause. Giving the name of the result to the cause. An example is, I have Buddha nature. I have the nature of a Buddha. No, not exactly. Not exactly. I have the nature of a Buddha. But I say I have Buddha nature. I have the potential to become a Buddha. I have all the ingredients to become a Buddha right here now. Therefore, I give the name of the result, Buddha, to the cause, the potential. Okay? So we do it all the time, but we don't talk like that. Oh, once again, you use the term, use the name of the cause to talk about the result. I can't even say it properly because we don't talk like that, but we do it. Therefore, the focal object of something, it's given the name of the cause to the result. We don't focus on anything. Okay, so I talked for a long time on that, just to let you know that I still use a different term altogether. So I'm not using the term focal object because some people get so confused when I call the body, your body in this case, as that which, based on which the conceptual consciousness in this example apprehends inherent existence. I call it the object of reference of the mind. Why? Because it's in relation to your body that the mind conceives inherent existence. This particular mind conceives inherent existence. However, your body is not perceived by the root misconception, nor does it appear to that mind. Your body is not perceived by it. It doesn't appear. Wow. It is its object of reference, but it's neither the appearing object, doesn't appear, nor is it the apprehended object, the object of engagement. It's just the basis. The misconception apprehends inherent existence merely on the basis of your body, which is why your body is also referred to as the basis. It's another term that is used to describe this phenomenon. It's the she, the basis. I couldn't find this Sanskrit. That is, I found many Sanskrit terms and I didn't know which one was the one that can be used in this context for basis. Never mind, you've got the Tibetan. She. Oh, I tried to apply what someone asked me to do to add the Tibetan terms. So it's not consistent, but here I use them. I use the Tibetan and sometimes the Sanskrit when I knew what it was, or when I found what it was. So why a body? Therefore, your body, here, the phenomenon, it's the basis based on which inherent existence is perceived. So that basis, it's described as basis or as object of reference. Both terms can be used. In Tibetan, you would then just say the object of reference, or the basis. And then you know it's that which the particular mind, the inherent of it's based on that thing that this particular mind perceives inherent existence. Okay, so you referred to it that way as the basis. So regarding the example here, conceptual consciousness apprehending the inherent existence of your body. What is the object of reference? Your body. What is the basis? Your body. Okay, both terms are used. And Lama Tsongkhapa uses both, but I think Jeffrey Hopkins, J. Garfield uses the word focus. Yeah, but like I said, I chose to use the word object of reference here, and that works well, actually, just to avoid confusion. And it is used. I didn't make it up. I think maybe even Venerable Thupten Chodron uses it, and I like the way she uses most of the vocabulary. Maybe one or two words I would use differently, but the rest of it is great. Okay, inherent existence is the aspect. Okay, so we have got the body, your body, as the basis. And now inherent existence, the second part, the second as an object, that is described as the aspect. So usually basis and aspect are described together. What is the basis? Inherent existence. Sorry, what is the basis? Your body. What is inherent existence? It is the aspect. I'll repeat it again, like in this, you see it again. It's mentioned again, but just for now. Okay, let me just quickly read through it. I know we want to meditate, but I want to finish this page at least. Okay, so because it is, so inherent existence is the aspect ascribed to that. So the mind ascribes to that basis an aspect. Okay, therefore, that's inherent existence is that aspect. Inherent existence also appears to and is apprehended by that mind. So that inherent existence is the appearing object, is the apprehended object. And not just inherent existence, but also the inherent existence of the basis. So the inherent existence of your body, that appears, but not your body. Okay? Which is why both of them are the apprehended objects of that mind. I'll explain in a moment more why not. Okay. Here's another example. To take another example of a root misperception, the view of the transitory collection. What is it? A conceptual consciousness that apprehends the inherent existence of oneself. Okay, here, the I serves as the basis of that consciousness and its perception of inherent existence, while inherent existence is the aspect the mind ascribes to the I. You see, basis, right? Based on that, an aspect is ascribed. That's how the word basis and aspect is used. The I is also the object of reference of the misconception. And the apprehended objects, they are, I made a mistake. No, I didn't make a mistake. That's right, sorry. And the apprehended objects are both inherent existence itself and the inherent existence of the I. Okay, those are the apprehended objects. So you have it all together again, and then you've got the little chart. Conceptual consciousness, now it's no longer your body. I've used a different example. View of the transitory collection, conceptual consciousness, it's the mind, activity of the mind, apprehending, perceiving. And then the apprehended object is the inherent existence of one's I. And of those, the apprehended object or the aspect is this, the inherent existence. Not the off so much, but I had to be there to be able to read through it. So I added the word off to be able to read conceptual consciousness apprehending the inherent existence of one's I. But really, the apprehended object is the inherent existence, and the object of reference is one's I. Or you can talk about the inherent existence as the aspect ascribed to the basis, which is one's I. All right. So this is just to become familiar with this particular vocabulary. And you can see that in relation to each other, one is described as aspect and one is described. So in relation to each other, the inherent existence and one's I, in relation to those two, to each other, inherent existence and the I use aspect and basis. On the basis of the I, inherent existence is perceived. But more in relation to what happens to the mind, what the mind does, it apprehends something in reference to something else. So you see, the terms are used for specific reasons. Okay, now the last thing I want to say is this. It is important to note that whereas the inherent existence of the I appears to and is perceived by the view of the transitory collection, the I itself neither appears nor is it perceived by that mind, as with the other example previously. This is because the root misperception conceives an inherently existent I, a perception that prevents the appearance and perception of the conventionally existent I. So if you perceive an inherently existent I, right, that stands in contradiction to that mind. There's an inherently existent I. And if you perceive that, you cannot perceive a conventionally existent I. Those are to that mind, they're contradictory. Either you perceive an inherently existent I or a conventionally existent I. Therefore, since due to the perception of an inherently existent I, conventionally existent I doesn't perceive, but it's still based on it's based on the inherent existence is of that I that with the mind, previous mind, you focused on. Here it says, but of course the I appears to and is perceived by correct consciousnesses. Of course, it can be perceived, just not by that incorrect consciousness. So by correct consciousnesses that don't apprehend inherent existence or anything else that doesn't exist, such as the conceptual consciousness perceiving the I as having Buddha nature. To that mind, the I appears, the I is apprehended, no problem. Okay. So this was a crash course on Lorik. I'm really just rushing you through. Sorry for that. I hope it's a little clearer, but I hope, of course, that you can read Lama Tsongkhapa's text and now know more when he says basis and aspect and so forth, and not just read through it without actually noticing. There's a reason for using this terminology. Now, this is for like a stepping stone for the next class, so to know what to expect. Since the mind apprehending inherent existence constitutes the root of cyclic existence, primarily because of the object it perceives, the first step to uproot it is to identify that object, inherent existence, and then to negate it by developing an understanding of why this mode of existence is impossible. Now, you've heard me use the terminology for that object before, apprehended object and so forth, so it's easier to refer to it, understanding in relation to the rest of the mind. But now let's look at the object itself, inherent existence. For the identification of inherent existence, it is essential to understand the meaning of conventional existence and the true truth. Okay, so next time you get a crash course on the true truth, it's very brief, not much. And conventional existence, there are three criteria that have to be met, three characteristics, if you like, of something conventionally existent, very important. I mentioned them in here. It comes more towards the end. I've already changed it again from before. Oh yeah, I didn't have that last time, I think, that little drawing. Or did I? I don't remember. Oh yes, I did actually. And then it's changed again. It changes all the time. Okay, great. You can read in advance. Of course, you get new material, which then I won't cover next time. As you see, I'm always a little bit ahead when it comes to preparing the material, but it gives you the chance to read through it. Great. I hope this was clear enough. What I would be really, and today you see the meditation is a little shortened, but never mind. I'll make up for it. But what I'd like you to ask, because I've never taken any feedback. I don't need any positive feedback, so I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for negative feedback, constructive, negative feedback, in that what can be changed. Because I've been thinking, is it difficult to always see these writings in front of you? Is that difficult? Of course, you still see the person talking, so that should actually be enough. Or anything else? Is there anything that you would like to be done differently or not? I don't know whether I can do it, but I'd like to at least get a sense. So is it helpful or not? If it's helpful, don't say anything. If it's not helpful, then maybe just send a feedback. So in that way, I can maybe adjust it a little bit, because I'm not used to this way of teaching. This is all new. I mean, Zoom in the first place, but also using this much material. I was thinking, oh my God, Lama Tsongkhapa has got this incredible commentary. And what am I reading? My silly description. I mean, everyone goes through a text, and I go through what I wrote. This is ridiculous. So just the other day, I had that thought. But of course, this is just the introduction, and I'm really just reformulating in a way what Lama Tsongkhapa says. And once we get to the text, of course, we read the text itself. It'll be just printed in here. Great. Okay, so that's it for today. Just to quickly say what I went through today, what we went through today. I answered a few questions, and then after that, I talked about the fact that the misperception of reality must be an innate mind, a mind we're born with, because that has the power, that has the force to give rise to samsara, to the other afflictive emotions, to karma, and so forth. And excuse me. And that is, of course, such an innate mind as opposed to an acquired mind. And we've heard what that means, a mind that is based on the intellectual influence and so forth of our environment. Okay. And then we talked about, again, there was stress that the misperception is a misperception not in terms of the nature of the mind itself or of what it does, its activity, but mainly because of its object. So what is this object in terms of the vocabulary that is used? Oh, great, thank you. What is that object in terms of the vocabulary that is used? And that's one aspect. And then after we went through appearing object, apprehended object, and so forth, once we went through that, then the next, what's next is then what is the object itself then? I mean, it is inherent existence. So how can we understand inherent existence? Well, a good way to understand it is to understand first, get some sense of what the true truth mean. And of course, most of you have studied this, but just to remind you, and there are a few aspects that I find are important in this context. And also, what does it mean to exist conventionally? Okay, great. Do you mean inherently existence of I or inherently existent I? Yeah. Actually, what's the difference? Inherently existent. When you perceive the inherent existence, so B put in the chat, she asked, like, are you talking about inherently existence of I or inherently existent I? What's the difference? What is the difference? And when you perceive an inherently existent I, you perceive the inherent existence of the I. This is debatable, I tell you, it's debatable. I mean, people would debate on that. But some of my teachers, they would say it's exactly the same. And I have a hard time, if they're not the same, to say, what's the difference? When the mind perceives an inherently existent I, it's the same as perceiving the I to be inherently existent. In both cases, you don't perceive the I to exist inherently. In both cases, you don't perceive the I because you perceive its inherent existence. But think about it. And someone may disagree, and I may be totally wrong about it. And the teachers who told me may have just told it to me in order for me to think further. That's a possibility. Then we have to find another reason. Well, there are other reasons, of course, why the I can't appear to that particular mind. Okay, there are other reasons. All right, time is really up now. I'm so sorry. I lost touch of time. Let's not do a meditation. You do it on your own. Okay, so next time, I'll start even, let's see, a little earlier with the meditation. I'll keep the questions shorter. But anyway, we've talked about this a lot, about meditation, and well, we talked about a lot of material, so you can meditate on the material we've done today, and also apply it to yourself the way I talked about it today. I mean, to not just reflect on it like it was your neighbor who's got a misconception, but you yourself kind of apply it to yourself and get this deep sense from within. Oh, this is my situation. This is what's responsible for all my suffering. And when I perceive the inherent existence of my body, I no longer perceive my body. I can no longer access my body. I perceive a distorted version of what's there and no longer my body. I don't see things as they really are. And of course, I get attached and so forth, and all the other balagan, all the other problems arise naturally, right? Okay, great. So then let's finish at least with the short meditation. Don't need to do breathing meditation or anything, but the dedication, of course, is important, just as important as the motivation. Therefore, let's do it in the same focus kind of way. Let's think that may whatever positive potential that we accumulated as a group today, here and now, may of course become a cause for us to quickly, and quickly only for the benefit of all sentient beings who are still suffering, may become a cause to quickly attain the state of a Buddha, so that we can actualize our fullest potential and be of the best benefit to each and every sentient being. May whatever positive potential we've accumulated also become a cause for our great masters, our great lamas, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all the other great beings who are still with us, who are guiding us, inspiring us. Or may they have an extremely long and healthy life, so that they can continue to do exactly that, guide us, teach us, and lead us towards the state of a fully enlightened Buddha. And may our merit, the merit we accumulated today, also help all other sentient beings, not just in the future once we become enlightened, but here and right now. May it help those who are sick, like Geshe, Tali Lubin, and everyone else suffering physically and mentally, to recover very, very soon. May our merit also help such a way that when we just talk to people, our mere presence will reduce their sadness, their fear, their anxiety, and their unhappiness. And instead, give them self-confidence, a sense of meaning in their life, and inner peace and happiness. Just through our presence, just through talking with them. May we be able to benefit others already now. And then with this thought, let's recite the dedication prayers. Through the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Shinrezi, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Okay, thank you very much. And please do the meditation and see you next week. Okay, bye.
Thank you, Geshe-ma.
Thank you.
much.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Good night to everyone.